Welcome back to KLEAN Radio. Having a great night tonight. We got Jack Grisham in from the band TSOL, among others. Just wrote a book, An American Demon. And we were just speaking with Mack Lindsay, a comic who's got a show coming up on the 23rd at the Comedy Store in the Belly Room at 10:30 p.m. It's called the Mack Lindsay Darkest Hour. And it's dark.
It's so dark. I couldn't hear the first time you said it.
So we were just right at the end or right at the beginning of the break there. We were just getting into Mack's story. So maybe we can just kick that back in.
Okay, yeah, good story. Homeless, sleeping in I'd been up for I was staying in this Koreatown apartment. It wasn't mine. It wasn't my friends. It was my friends' friends, and they, of course, were like, "Yeah, just stay there," And I'd been up for probably 3 weeks, with intermittent naps. And by that time, I'd begun having these audio hallucinations, and visual hallucinations. And I was under the coffee table, and my body is sort of jerking around.
Sleep deprivation, psychosis.
Yeah, or speed. And I was or meth, or smoking a bunch of meth out of a foil pipe. And so I was just my body was depleted. I was dehydrated. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And so I was like, okay, I'll just leave the speed alone. And I started drinking very shortly after that. And I didn't know I could drink like that. I knew I couldn't stop smoking speed. I knew I couldn't stop doing these drugs. And I had been to AA, like I said before, numerous times. And I was at this point where I was like, oh, it's just one giant hive mind. They want to control me, and everybody regurgitates these platitudes that they read out of a book. They've cut their mind out and replaced it with 164 pages of gibberish. And, needless to suffice to say,
they were right.
They were right. They were right.
And you were right.
I'm I had enough. I had my own gibberish going on in my head, and I was like, so I was in this car, and I was just drinking every night, and I had, basically any bridge that I had, with friends or family had been completely obliterated. I just burned every bridge, and no friends, nobody wanted to talk to me. I was broke, living in a car, and I was drinking, and I struggle with the whole God thing. I still do. 5 years into it, there's days where I'm we are just worm food, and then other days I'm well, maybe there is something. I feel kind of connected. So I wax and wane with that, but at that point, I refused. It made me physically ill to hit my knees and ask for help from anything. I just felt this physical revulsion at doing it, and I had just reached this point where I was like, okay, I can't stop drinking now. My life is shit. I'm sorry. Oops. Can you please bleep that out later? I did not mean to do that.
It will make the web.
Okay. And I don't think it got dumped.
Shoot. And so anyways, I just asked for help, and then I went to this meeting, and I got a sponsor, and I went through the steps, and that's when my problems really started. I think a lot of people were like, I got sober and saw a burning bush and all this, and for me, it's just been this long, tedious, gradual, learning process of me bumping my head over and over and over. It's the minute that I took drugs and alcohol away from my life, I then had to live life, which I had no idea how to do. I still am really bad at it,
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions of people when they come in, is that most people that stay sober are the ones that had a really hard time with it in the beginning. It's usually the people that are whoa, I found God and I'm happy.
I hate generalizations, but
for the most part, I see the people that struggle and that fight it and they're angry are the ones that you do not want. You're like, oh God, I got to listen to that guy again. But those guys, most of the time, those people are the ones that stay.
Well, it's hard. Life is hard. It doesn't happen easily.
Yeah,
and getting sober doesn't make everything easy.
No, it doesn't. It makes most things harder in the beginning.
Exactly.
Because you when you get sober, most things you never did sober. There's different sects, obviously but when you get sober when you're young, the odds of you going to college are probably not in the equation. The odds of you being socially adept are not in the equation.
I was socially retarded by the time that I had to go. I went to this meeting, and am I allowed to say the R word now? I don't. Yes. I have no idea what I'm allowed to say.
It might be offensive
anymore.
To somebody, but
yeah. Okay. Well, all right.
You have the comedy thing called The Darkest Hour, so I don't.
Yeah, that's cool. I can say the R word.
You're saying it with love.
So I was just I was just very maladjusted. In the first few years, I went to this meeting in Hollywood, and we threw stuff at the speakers if we didn't like them. I
I'm
mean,
guessing
I
yes.
was, you know which one I'm talking
Yes,
about, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to be an animal,
Right.
you know, and that allowed me the ability to feel like I was, you know, still act like a drug. I needed that. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't have conversations. I couldn't do anything. And I would go to these meetings every night and flip out in there. And, you know, that kept me sober for a long time. And, you know, I've gotten a lot better now. I can talk to people, and I'm not, you know, a complete ass every time I.
When did
open my mouth.
you decide to become a comic?
I always wanted to do it when I was younger. I grew up watching comedy, and, you know, I remember watching it and thinking, this is what I want to do. Because I think there was some point when I was in class or something, I said something that aggravated a teacher, and while doing that, it was like I toppled the giant, and everybody, all my classmates were like, yeah, you know, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm accepted now, you know, now I'm lovable. So this is what I can do, you know. And I guess I was about 17 years old when I first went up on stage. And of course, drugs got in the way with that shortly after. And I started back up when I was 21, and I just haven't stopped since then. Like, I've just kept going since 21, you know.
So what are you trying to do with your comedy? Because it's different.
Make money. No. Get rich.
But your show is different from most comics.
Yeah, I mean, it's different from a lot of comics. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's true for anybody that can learn to be themselves on stage.
Right.
You know, but I think a lot of like the things I choose to talk about, it's going to be really hard for me to get on television. It's going to be very hard for a lot of people to enjoy it. A lot of people do not like what I do, but there are those that enjoy it, and those are the people that I try to connect with. Because like I said, other than that, like most of the time, like I'll walk on stage at a comedy club where people who don't really know my name or anything, and most of them are, you know, drinking mimosas or have shawls on, or some hipster with like a turn of the century mustache. I'm like, you know, look like I don't know whether to laugh at you or fire a cannonball at your stomach. I haven't a clue, you know. And, you know, and they're gonna sit there and judge me, you know. And so I approach it like I could go, well, how do I pander to these people, and how do I get them to accept me, you know? But most of the time I approach them as if it's very adversarial a lot of times.
Like Bill Hicks is like, he didn't care. Like, that's the attitude you got. You know, he was comic that basically it's like, you know, you have to be yourself, and you have to not care what the audience does. It's about the message. Do you think you have a message? Is there something that you're trying to get to?
I think that I have more of a message now than I ever have before. I mean, everybody goes through different incarnations, you know what I mean? Like I continue to change and continue to evolve, so what I may have found important 3 years ago, I don't find so important anymore. I think as far as saying like Bill Hicks didn't care, I think he did care. I think he struggled.
He cared immensely.
Well, anybody that says they don't care usually does.
Yeah,
cares too much.
But I think what's interesting about
I
think what's interesting about both you and Jack is that both of you have chosen to go not the easier and softer way. You know, you decided to write a memoir that's very dark and very brutally honest, and not the, like we were talking about, the regular, you know, run-of-the-mill memoir where, you know, you walk into the fairy tale, and you've decided comedic-wise to do your own thing.
Yep.
And that's really hard. I mean, it's you know, when TV, you know, because the goal these days for a comedian, I would imagine, is, you know, to be a 30-minute sitcom.
Well, TV credits open up a lot, so there's this like industry push to get TV credits.
Yeah, I mean, if you get TV, you get a name, then you get to make money. You get to go to clubs, you know, and stuff like that. And the majority of people that are doing stand-up, I think, have in mind, I'm going to be on a sitcom. And maybe not a sitcom. I'll be in movies or acting. You know, it's like Charlie Sheen isn't, I hate to bring it up, but he's an actor. And he's like, I can do comedy. And it's like, well,
And
that's
no, you can't.
what people think of, you know,
Right.
it as an art form. And I personally think, like, I just want to be myself and express my ideas through the medium of stand-up comedy. And that's all I want to do. I don't want to be on a movie. I don't want to sell hot dogs on a Wiener Schnitzel commercial. I don't want, you know, to be in a sitcom or a reality show. I don't want to do any of that. I want to do stand-up.
So when you were, Jack, when you originally pitched, your version, was it with their version, right?
Right.
Was it when they read your version? Was it because they were like, how are we going to promote this guy?
No, they asked for something else, and I just gave them what I wanted. I see. I'm in it for a whole different thing. I've gotten bad reviews so long that I might as well just do whatever I want.
Right.
Yeah, let's jump in. We got a call from Emily. Emily, are you there?
Emily?
Hello,
Didn't-
Emily. Hey, Emily, how are you?
Hey.
Welcome to KLEAN Radio.
She lost a bet.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Good.
You got a question or?
Yeah, I sort of tuned in late, but I was just curious. My question's for Grisham. Like, how did you deal with success and in the music scene and staying sober?
I haven't had to worry about any success. I was living out of a car 2 years ago, so it's not. I don't think it has anything to do with it. The worst thing about that is, I think worse than that is people patting you on the back constantly. That's the hard thing. I have never had trouble with success. It's the opposite. It's doing the best I can do and failing. That's always the fear. It's not. No one's afraid of doing well. You know,
Right.
It's like we're always afraid of giving our best shot and then coming up short. So I think, but I've come up short all the time. So it's all right. I'm not.
It's interesting because you are a legend. I mean,
right
whether-
here. Yeah,
in a
within
lot of
couple
places.
miles away from
No,
you.
in a lot of places. I mean,
Yeah.
people know
Yeah,
TSOL, right? I mean, Emily.
Let me imagine, when I said that you were going to be on the show, Andrew's face literally lit up. And I'm being serious. It takes a lot for him to get excited.
Well, it's
But you were excited.
Yeah, I mean, he's part of my youth.
Right.
You know.
But I think for me, like going back to this deal where she said, the success thing about it's basically it's unconditional sobriety,
Right.
good or bad, no matter what it is. It's just and more like I think I'm more now a what do I want to say? I basically watch this stuff happen instead of like really participating in it. Do you know what I mean? If any success happens, it's almost like you're watching it as an observer. Than buying it. I just don't buy anything.
So you hate when
anymore.
people ask that question. You say, yeah, I don't mean Emily, obviously, but when people say as a statement, I'm scared of, I have a hard time with success.
Right.
They really don't have. It's like nobody has a hard time if they won $1 million.
No,
in the lotto.
Well, I guess another question to dovetail off that question is, it seems like, people can get really busy with just life, and I'm sure you've been busy, and how do you balance the two, really? You know
That's
what I mean?
actually a great question.
Well, see, I get on guys a lot of times because I hear these people. I'll sit and I go to a meeting or whatever, and they say, well, meeting makers make it, blah blah blah, and you got to go to meetings every day, and you got to do this. I just did 18 days, 3 weeks in Europe. I got to 2 meetings in 3 weeks. I was around drugs and alcohol every night. The 2 meetings I got to, they didn't speak English. You know what I mean? And the programs really got nothing to do with that. Right. I can sit and have quiet time in the morning, have a little meditation, whatever it is, and actually learn to work the program without that crap.
Well, I think a lot of people have misconceptions about. I mean, it's great that people can go to several meetings a day, and in some places like LA has.
Usually they
meetings
don't have a
everywhere.
job.
Right, but you go to the Midwest, there's one meeting a week. If you're lucky, in a lot of small towns, they're just people don't have access, and it really isn't designed to be something that you go to twice a day.
No, not
you're
Only in LA.
Only in LA.
Right.
I mean, it's true because people all the time say to me, "What meeting are you going to tonight?" And I'm like, "I don't really have one planned." And they give me this look in their eyes, like,
you must
"Really?"
be drinking, right?
Yeah.
Or they do this. This is my at least when people haven't seen you in a while at an AA meeting, they never say, "Hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you." They give you that. You ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm when he doesn't believe you and he like looks you in the eye, like, and he's like staring. They give you this like the 12-step look, like, let me look in those eyes, let me smell you,
But
and
AA was very much about moving past that.
it was a bridge
Completely.
back to life.
Back to life.
The goal was to get back to life.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
if you read
Right.
most of the stories, Dr. Bob became a successful doctor again.
Right.
He
He didn't go to 2 meetings a day.
Right.
for the
He
rest
didn't
of
go
his life.
because he couldn't. He had a family to support, and he had he had become a responsible member of society.